HMS Princess was a 70-gun third-rate ship of the line of the Royal Navy. She had briefly sailed as Princesa for the Spanish Navy, until her capture off Cape Finisterre in 1740 during the War of the Austrian Succession. After being chased down and captured by 3 British ships, she was acquired for service by the Royal Navy. Her design and fighting qualities excited considerable interest, and sparked a series of increases in the dimensions of British warships. She went on to serve under a number of commanders in several theatres of the War of the Austrian Succession, including the Mediterranean, where she was at the Battle of Toulon, and in the Caribbean and off the North American coast. She was then laid up and, being assessed, was not reactivated for service during the 7 Years' War. She was instead reduced to a hulk at Portsmouth, in which capacity she lasted out both the 7 Years' War and the American War of Independence, being sold for breaking up in 1784, shortly after the end of the latter conflict, after a career in British service lasting 44 years. Spanish career in capture. Princesa was built between 1730 and 1731, being nominally rated at 70 guns, but carrying 64. On the 25th of March 1740, news reached the Admiralty that 2 Spanish ships had sailed from Buenos Aires, and were bound for Spain. Word was sent to Portsmouth, and a squadron of 3 ships, consisting of the 70-gun ships HMS Kent, HMS Lennox and HMS Orford, under the command of Captain Colville Mayne of Lennox, were prepared to intercept them. The ships, part of Sir John Balchen's fleet, were briefly joined by HMS Ripon and HMS St. Albans, and the squadron sailed from Portsmouth at 3 a.m. on the 29th of March, passing down the English Channel. Ripon and St. Albans fell astern on the 5th of April, and their main shortened sail. They did not come up. On the 8th of April, Mayne's squadron was patrolling some 300 miles southwest of the Lizard when a ship was sighted to the north. The British came up and found her to be Princesa, carrying 64 guns and a crew of 650 under the command of Don Paulo Augustino de Guerra. They began to chase her at 10 a.m., upon which she lowered the French colors she had been flying and hoisted Spanish ones. Mayne addressed his men saying, "When you received the pay of your country, you engaged yourselves to stand all dangers in her cause. Now is the trial. Fight like men, for you have no hope but in your courage." After a 2.5-hour chase, the British were able to come alongside and exchange broadsides, which eventually left the Spanish ship disabled. The British then raked her until she struck her colors. The Spanish ship had casualties of 33 killed and around 100 wounded, while 8 men were killed aboard both Kent and Orford, and another one aboard Lennox. Total British wounded amounted to 40, and included Captain Durrell of Kent, who had one of his hands shot away. The commander of Orford during the engagement had been Lord Augustus Fitzroy. According to the Spanish version of the facts, the ship Princesa was seriously damaged before the combat. The Spanish ship Princesa began a hard battle against the 3 English ships chasing her. The combat lasted 6 hours. Princesa caused serious damages to Lennox and obliged Kent to leave the battle, but could not face the encounter against Orford and surrendered. There were 70 killed and 80 wounded on board Princesa, which was taken to Portsmouth for reparation. Afterward, she was used by the Royal Navy. British service. Princesa was brought into Portsmouth on the 8th of May 1740. An Admiralty order of the 21st of April 1741 authorized her purchase, and this was duly done on the 14th of July 1741 for the sum of £5,418.11.63 After a great repair, she was fitted at Portsmouth between July 1741 and March 1742, for a total sum of £36,007. £7.20 10d. Her spirited resistance to 3 ships of equal rating attracted much comment. A contemporary description noted that she was larger than any British first-rate and carried unusually large guns, many of them brass. She was described as the finest ship in the Spanish Navy, with her high build allowing her to open her lower gun ports in conditions in which her opponents could not. The Admiralty finally had the ammunition to rouse Parliament from its complacency and fund a series of increases in British warship dimensions. Princess was commissioned under her first commander, Captain Perry Main, in July 1741. He was succeeded in 1743 by Captain Robert Pett, who took her out to the Mediterranean in December that year. She was part of Admiral Thomas Matthew's fleet at the Battle of Toulon on 14 February 1744. She came under the temporary command of Commander John Donkley in July 1745, though he was soon replaced by Captain Joseph Lingen, all the while continuing in the Mediterranean. Thomas Philpott took command in 1746, and Princess sailed for the Leeward Islands with Admiral George Townshend. Captain John Cockburn took over in July 1746, and Princess first sailed to Louisbourg and then home after a gale. She became the flagship of Admiral Richard Lestock later in 1746 and was present at the operations off Lorient from 20 to 25 September 1746. In May 1747, Captain the Hon. Augustus Harvey took over command and sailed to the Mediterranean, where in October 1747 she briefly became the flagship of Vice Admiral John Byng. Later years, Princess was paid off in November 1748. She was surveyed the following year, but no repairs were reported. After a period laid up and inactive, she was reported to be unfit for service on 15 November 1755. She was converted to a hulk at Portsmouth between August 1759 and July 1761. She was recommissioned in 1759 under Captain Edward Barber, and continued as a hulk during the 7 Years' War and the American War of Independence. Princess was finally sold at Portsmouth on 30 December 1784.